for the Hi, and welcome to my presentation for the Multilingual Learner Summit. I'm excited to be here, and I wish that I could be here with you live, but unfortunately, I'm unable to. But I hope you enjoy this session, and I'm looking forward to sharing what I've learned about belonging and also about an asset-based approach. So the title of my session is Asset-Based Teaching, Changing Perceptions to Create a Sense of Belonging. And of course, that sense of belonging in your classroom, especially, but also school-wide. And you can see that I have a poster there. The essence of belonging is feeling safe within ourselves and with others. Something that's really, really important for our learners. Safety, then belonging, then learning. And you'll see that my hashtag is belonging before Bloom, even though we often hear Maslow before Bloom. But I say belonging before Bloom because I believe it is so important for anyone to be able to learn, to feel safe, and to really thrive in school is to pay attention to those relationships that we have, that we make with our students and with our colleagues. So let me go ahead and start the presentation. I have lived in Kuwait since 1984. I moved here to marry the love of my life, who I met while I was living in Buffalo, New York. That's where I grew up. And I do go back and forth. Well, in non-COVID conditions, I do travel back and forth to see my family. But Kuwait has been home since 1984. I fell into education in 1995-96 by accident, and I found my passion and have been in education ever since. I was an elementary teacher, then an elementary principal, and then I took some time off to get my doctorate in educational leadership from Lehigh University, and then went back and began teaching intensive English at a private university here in Kuwait. Then I became the director of that program, and I retired after spending 5 years putting their program together and helping them get reaccredited by CEA. And that was 2019. So I have been retired for 2 years, essentially to travel more. But of course, we know right now that's not happening too much. And so during this COVID crisis, I have really put myself wholeheartedly into learning more about belonging. And so I started blogging about it. I'm now podcasting and interviewing others in my podcast, Journeys to Belonging. I'm a PD specialist. I mentor teachers, especially refugee teachers or teachers from marginalized populations. And I also do some volunteering to assist intensive English language learners who are trying to get into college programs, those who are also refugees or in marginalized populations. And again, my hashtag is belonging before Bloom. So what are the session objectives now that you know a little bit more about me? I want to share why perceptions matter. And when we talk about asset-based deficit thinking and so forth, which is very in the conversation right now, a lot of discussions happening about that. I also want to share with you how we can plant the seeds for success. And when I say success, that's successful meeting of outcomes, student outcomes, ensuring that students are able to meet those outcomes, even our English language learners or multilingual learners. And ensuring a sense of belonging. And then how can you build your toolbox? So let's start with perceptions matter. Yes, they do matter. And it's not just our perceptions as teachers. It's our perceptions and also our learners' perceptions. So how do students view themselves? For those of you who have been teaching for a while, or even just a year, you know that our learners come into our classrooms with a feeling of a lack of confidence and a feeling that they're missing skills. They're well aware of the fact that they don't know as much as their colleagues, the native speakers in the classroom, or those who have been in school longer, because many of these learners have gaps in their learning or haven't been in school for a while, especially our newcomers. For those of you who have newcomers and are teaching in the United States or Canada, and so they perhaps were out of school for many years before they were able to come to the West. And so if you look at the graphic or look at the sort of icons, there's a glass half empty, which is our perception of they don't know, they're lacking skills, that deficit mindset, that we're worried about them being able to catch up because we have content to teach that's very challenging for them. They don't have the vocabulary, the comprehension skills, and so forth. So it's that deficit mindset. Then we have the glass half full, which is the asset mindset, the asset-based mindset of thinking that they come in with strengths, with different abilities. Perhaps they don't have the language facility. Perhaps they don't have the language facility in their first language or their home language. Maybe they didn't really study. Maybe they haven't been in school at all. But we can see that the glass can be filled. And so if our perception is the fact that they have these strengths, we need to find out these strengths, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and that the glass can be filled. It may take a little longer than others, but it can be filled. Then the students, will feel that sense of self-confidence, self-efficacy. So what is an asset-based approach? This quote or this definition that I've taken from the New York University Steinhardt School of Education. The article is listed there, the link to the article. In the simplest terms, an asset-based approach focuses on strengths. It views diversity in thought, culture, and traits as positive assets. Teachers and students alike are valued for what they bring to the classroom rather than being characterized by what they may need to work on or lack. And I just seen a typo, but we'll just ignore that. Anyway, in the simplest terms, so asset-based approach focuses on what they do have, what we bring to the table as teachers, what our students bring to the table, what their thoughts are, their mindset is, their abilities and understanding of culture, their own culture, the rich culture that and cultural backgrounds that they come from, the experiences that they've had, and their traits. So let's look at that a little bit more. So, as I said, I want to talk about planting seeds for success. This is from the teacher's point of view. Okay, remember, we're talking about perception. So it's really important that we focus on teacher and then student perceptions. So we need to think of and we need to believe that all students can learn. Now, I'm not saying that teachers walk into the classroom and they wake up in the morning and they walk in and they say, oh, I think only some of my students can learn. The rest of them, I don't think they can learn. No, what I'm saying is that we need to check our biases and check our doubts, not so much our biases, but our doubts about students that we may have seen are slow to pick up skills. And in order to be able to do that, we need to get a really strong idea about our learners. So our learner profile. So from the very first day, we need to get to know our students. And there are different ways to do this. You can do different activities at the beginning of the year, all about me's. They can talk about, draw, write about, and visualize in different ways. I mean, there are just so many techniques, which I don't have time to go into, but there are so many ways that students can share their profiles with you. So from the teacher point of view, coming in from day one and then throughout the year, assessing them, formative assessments, summative assessments, and just quick ways to find out what our students know, what their background is, about their families, and so forth. So a really full learner profile. Each student has strengths. So again, looking at the asset rather than the deficit. We know that they come in with things they need to improve, with gaps. But what are their strengths? How can those strengths be used to help them learn in our classroom, to feel safe, to feel that sense of belonging? And so when I talk about belonging, I also talk about self-belonging. And self-belonging is that idea of self-confidence, self-efficacy, self-esteem, self-worth. And often, because of their circumstances, whether they've experienced trauma or just from the fact that they've sat in our classrooms and they really don't understand what's going on. So they have those things that they come with that are I call them their superpowers. So we need to find out through that learner profile, what are their superpowers? And we also need to ensure that our students realize that they have these strengths and superpowers. We also have to remember that words matter. So when we're speaking with our students, when we're giving them feedback, the words need to be positive and constructive. We need to make sure that students don't hear us talking about they lack this, you're not able to do this. We need to make sure that we don't talk about things that they don't have, or sugarcoat what they're able to do. But when we give our feedback, we need to make sure that we have given it in a way that they can take it and feel better about themselves, and also feel that they can accomplish the work. So the self-efficacy in learning English is really, really important. So what is that from the student's point of view? Well, by doing all those things as the teacher, we're ensuring a sense of belonging. How are we doing that? So I talked about self-belonging. We want to ensure that they have a sense of self-efficacy in their target language. Okay, so if we're talking about English language learners, or we're talking about multilinguals, the target language might not be English, it might be something else. If you're a foreign language teacher, for example. So the self-efficacy part is, I believe that I can improve my skills in this particular area. And in this case, it's probably English, okay? And if the student has that sense of self-belonging, self-efficacy in the target language, then they will have a growth mindset. That's what we're aiming for. We want to be sure that the learners learn, that they are able to achieve the outcomes. In terms of each student has strengths, students need to be able to say, I have superpowers, okay? I have strengths. I need to know as a student what my strengths are. What are they? I might not realize that something that I have, like being resilient or being able to discuss about my own culture, is a strength. I may not realize that because all I'm feeling is that I don't know what's going on in class. So it's really important to point out those strengths to students. And words matter, as I keep saying over and over again. So students need to learn how to talk positively to themselves. They need to understand that by self-talk that's negative, they're not going to reach that sense of self-efficacy or have that self-esteem. Again, that sounds of sense of self-belonging, but also the sense that they belong in your classroom, right? So it's not just my own sense of belonging. It's my relationship with my teacher and with the other students. So it's really important that I'm able to, as a student, to talk positively to myself. So how can you build your toolbox of strategies? Again, I don't have very much time, but I will on the next slide give you a Wakelet collection of different resources that I continually put together. So the WIDA I can statements are definitely, they should be in your toolbox of strategies. If you're not already using them and not sharing them with your students, then it's something that I would highly recommend, because again, it's that positive self-talk, building that self-efficacy, self-esteem, and self-confidence. And then strategies to pre-assess skills and knowledge. So what are the strategies that we can use to make sure that I know what skills and knowledge my students do have? And it's not just in the language. What other related skills, perhaps those soft skills or study skills or ability to be able to see things in a way that, because of their experiences, because of their family values and so forth. So really getting to know by pre-assessing those skills. And that is ongoing all year long, again with formative assessments, quick quizzes and things like that, or just conversations that you're having with them. PD resources. And again, I'm going to share this Wakelet collection with you, but there are a lot of books and articles, webinars, especially during this COVID period. There have been so many webinars, so many different conferences and so forth. There's a lot on YouTube and on the web. And just like, today's summit, you're seeing a lot of sharing going on. And then, of course, your professional learning community. Reach out to your professional learning community, build your professional learning community or your learning network, either within your school, within your team, within your school, or online, or a community-wide or district-wide, depending on where you are. So make sure that you're building your toolbox of strategies. I'm going to leave this up for just a minute and make sure that you're able to see this link. And also, if you take a screenshot or you just put your camera up to the QR code, you'll be able to have access to a Wakelet collection that I'm constantly building. There are videos in there. There are articles. I'm updating it all the time. And it will also be helpful for you. It's a good starting place, and it might be something that you could use. I love Wakelet. I'm not here to talk about Wakelet, but I love Wakelet because it's a great way to keep all of your resources in one place. And then for the end, if I were live, we would be having a short Q&A. But what I'd like to do is sort of turn the tables, and rather than having you ask me questions, since this is a recording, what I'd like to do is leave you with some reflection questions. So the first one is, how can I spark their interest? So how can I, as the teacher, spark student interest? How can I create a safe space? So remember when I said we want to be sure that we can put together a complete learner profile throughout the year. But at the very beginning of the year, we need to establish that relationship with our students so they feel safe. They feel that I believe in them. I, as the teacher, believe in them. And even though it may take them longer to do a task or to learn something, I still believe in them. And I want them to share their story. And I'm going to create a safe space for them, myself as the teacher, and also within our classroom, to make sure that everyone feels respected and included. And how can I catch them when they falter? Not fail, But once they sort of miss a step. How can I catch them? How can I teach them how to catch themselves? How can I teach them and show them that when they falter, it's okay, that I don't think they're a failure, that I don't think they can't learn, that I know this is part of their process. And I'm teaching them that they know that this is part of the process of learning. And how can I ensure their self-talk is positive? How can I, as the teacher, make sure that students talk to themselves and tell themselves, I can grow, I can learn, I can improve, even though I'm missing many things right now. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. I am sorry that I couldn't be here with you live, but I hope you benefited from this session. And please be sure to look on my website, journeystobelonging.webstarts.com, where there are a lot more resources for self-belonging, professional belonging, and personal belonging. And also to look up my podcast, Journeys to Belonging, and find me on social media at Eileen Winokur. And thank you very much. I appreciate all of you, and I look forward, hopefully next time, to be able to present live. Thank you.